Yeah,
They're at,
I looked because I was trying to see about people on my committee, but they aren't here. I was seeing if it was anybody from the committee that was on the committee, but I didn't see, there's not.
they started at 4.
Oh, okay. Tell Isabella I make that dessert.
It's not Isabella.
You tell Isabella I make that dessert.
You already made it?
Yeah.
How could you have done that?
Did it lunch. Her real name is Isabella. Isabella.
Always has.
I like Isabella.
16 years been that way.
Don't care, dude. I'm gonna call her Isabella. And I make coffee and tea.
3 and 4. How are y'all?
How are you? What's up, number one?
One's good. One's good.
Good evening, everyone. Glad everyone. This is a fun night tonight. Hopefully, we proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer and pledge of allegiance. If you'd like to, please feel free to join us. Miss Isby, can I ask you to word it, please?
Sure. If you'll bow with me. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we just want to come before you, thanking you for all of the blessings that you've given us. And Lord, we are just lifting up all the families and everyone that's involved in the rescuing and helping of this devastation that came through. We just, like I said, lift them all up to you. We know that you are all knowing and all loving. We just ask, Lord, that you bless what we are going to be talking about tonight, because we know that this is something that you were orchestrated and were in the plan. And we just thank you for all the blessings you've given us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, we're good. We'll now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett, would you call the roll?
Mr. Hawkins? Here. Mr. Grimes? Here. Ms. Tucker?
Here.
Ms. Mel?
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter? Here. Ms. Webb?
Here.
Mr. Jones? Here. Ms. Isby?
Here.
Well, I'm going to read from a prepared statement because I will forget somebody. Brad, you're not to that age yet, but I am. Tonight's meeting is an update to the City Council on where we are with the Conway Community Center. First, I would like to thank you and the staff for all the tremendous work you've done, but specifically Steve Ibbotson, Andrew, Derek, Trey, Jamie, and Felicia. Craft and Tull, Hastings, Chavetta, Council Hunsaker, and Napos for working on this project and ensuring that we have a great product. We asked the public for a vote a year ago in February, and even before that time, this team has worked to bring the project from conceptual to what you will see today. Within this project, there were a lot of moving pieces, but we are finally almost ready to start. Tonight, we will present you the Conway City Council, the Community Center, which will have an indoor pool with 8 lanes, an outdoor pool with a lazy river. Theo, I know it makes you happy. Slides, cabanas. You want the lazy river. Cabanas and concessions, a community center with volleyball, pickleball, and multi-purpose rooms, and a fitness center. We will have presentations by Hastings, Chavetta, and Navajos, and then we will follow up with Mr. Winningham. Council, this is your time tonight to tell us what you like and what you don't like. If there's something you want to add or something you want to take away. I know the big question, Felicia's going to give me that look. Everyone wants to know when we're going to start. Well, from here, if the council likes everything that they see and there's not a lot of changes, then it will go to the bid process, and that will probably take about another three to 4 months. But this started, we started really talking about it in 2020, and I hope folks understand, especially the public, that we went from a conceptual plan to actually working with all these groups that have been named to actually putting a plan together, getting the blueprint ready, all the furniture and everything, and then presenting it here tonight. So with that being said, I think our first speaker tonight is Hastings, is that correct? You're up, sir. And thank you for all the work you've done.
Thank you very much. Eric Coker with Hastings and Chivetta Architects. Mark is also going to join me from, wow, that was good. You came around on the backside. There you go. So we just wanted to thank you again for joining us this evening. I think we have a lot of exciting news and images and ideas and concepts to share with you this evening. So we're very excited about that. It's kind of a two-part show tonight. We're going to go through the architectural team is going to go through the building design and the pool design and a little bit of schedule. And then, of course, the Napholtz people are going to follow up with all the technical information relating to the bidding process and what they've been doing since they've joined our team, our collective team, over a year ago. And so we're excited to get started. So we have a fairly brief agenda for this section, which is, as you can already read, we're going to talk a little bit about the schedule. We wanted to just remind all of you about the exciting public outreach that we did, which again, I go back and I think that was almost a year and a half ago, well in advance of, I think, even the vote. And then we're going to update you on the current design of the facility, and then we'll take any questions. And then we'll switch quickly to Napholtz, and they will wrap up the show with the budget information and schedule and when we're going to break ground and the day it's going to open. So, Mark?
I know everybody's been a little concerned with our schedule because it seems to be moving slow, but I wanted to do a recap on the timelines here. We had this project done in two phases. So the first phase was that phase of pre-design services when we were talking about pre-bond refinance election that we had. And so we had to do the contract negotiations with us, then the public input sessions. And then after the public input sessions, we went into an operations study with Ballard King. We hired them to kind of validate the operations and money side of the project for the wish list items that y'all were wanting. So we went into that exercise, and after that, we kind of went on hold, developed a couple fly-through materials for the bond re-election, that kind of thing. And then the process of acquiring and closing on the Axiom building was pulled into the mix because that fit our program well. So that process was, about till April of last year. So all that was going on while we just kind of sat and wait to start our second phase, which is the construction drawing, the actual design of the facility past kind of that first diagram that everybody saw. Then we went into schematic drawings and narratives. And right around that time, after schematic drawings, we got our first budget review, did a little bit of light VE engineering. I think all of the items on our wish list were a little bit strong, and so we had to dial that back a little bit. And we went into our design development phase, which is traditionally the phase where we get a little bit more into the weeds, designing and developing with the construction manager what we can actually do for the project in terms of materials and choices like that. So we started that process. We put out a draft GD package for kind of the building committee to look at. We responded to that, and then we issued it to Napholtz to do their pricing. That pricing was being put together, and then if you remember, right before Christmas, I came and said we were on schedule to do 100% construction drawings mid-February. Well, that didn't happen. So about that time, we got further feedback from Napholtz that we were kind of designing outside our budget. So we kept doing some construction drawings, but then we pretty well early on decided, wait, we better hold, look at this project in its kind of totality, and see what we could do that better fit the budget that we were working for. So that's the exercise that we've been going through, and it has taken us a long time to get there, but that's where we stand tonight. Pending moving forward, we can have those drawings wrapped up in mid-June, and then Napholtz can talk about their construction schedule and their scoping schedule and everything too. So that's just a recap of where we've been on the project.
So, as I mentioned before, we wanted to just talk a little bit about the public outreach we did, which I would say was very positive. And we got a number of people out on several different occasions. We went through a whole series. We showed them, of course, graphics and all the things you can have in a community, an aquatic center. And then we also did what we call prioritization exercises. And if any of you were there when you participated with these, we put all these images up. You can vote on images, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, what would you like in the facility. And it was really a confirmation of what everyone thought should be in this facility. And essentially, you're going to see almost all of these parts in some form or another are still generally in the facility. With Darren here, Darren will talk a little bit more about the pools, but we did the same exercise with all the potential components that you can enjoy in an outdoor pool complex. And he'll talk more about the specifics of the ones that are in the project now that were really exciting for the community. We also did a prioritization exercise just to find out what people thought this building might want to look like, just architecturally. And as you can see, we kind of gave them examples of traditional. We had one category called lodge. We did what was called in the nature, that really just responds to, using natural elements on the building, and then kind of cool, modern. And of course, interestingly, we end up with a perfect tie because we used kind of weighted scoring. And it just turned out that people were very interested in this in nature and kind of modern blended architectural style. Now, remember, we're also connecting to a older metal pre-engineered building, the Axiom building. So that presented some challenges, of course, to do something like this, but you'll see, we believe we've come up with a pretty interesting solution that we've had a lot of feedback on is very positive. So to talk about the current design, we wanted to first, again, remind everyone, I think you're all familiar with the site, of course. You can see right at the bottom, the Axiom building right in the middle. And I don't know how many on council have been in the building. I know many of you were in tours. Has everybody been through the existing building now, or you have not? Well, it's a lovely building, but it has tremendous potential, and that's why the decision was, let's not tear it down. You have all this existing space, and it's in generally pretty good existing space, although we're going to reorganize it and find different ways to use it than the way it was originally planned to be used. But certainly it has great value, and that it was a fairly good price. And of course, it expands the amount of area that we have to work with to develop as recreation space. The back half, the back 2/3 of the building is 2-story space primarily, which is the warehouse component. And then, you might call it the head house, or the front end of the building is the 2-story area that has 2 levels that kind of shape an L. And, it comes with stairs, bathrooms, has an elevator. It needs to be upgraded a little bit, but it has a working elevator. And then it had just all that big space in the back for activity spaces. So we started with that plan. And of course, we've gone through a number of different permutations early on. And this is where we're moving forward, already in the construction document phase. Working with our civil engineers and the street department, we've done the alignments of the future circles, circles and the driveways, the future driveways that will bring you into the site. Of course, we now have ample parking. There's a little bit of existing parking. It was fairly tired around the building now, so that's been improved. And the parking and the landscaping will all, of course, be new. You can see the footprint of the Axiom building labeled renovated. And then we have the indoor aquatic center to the west with a little L shape. You'll see more what's in that component. And then, as you can already see, we have the outdoor pool behind that. It works out very well to have the circulation that goes all the way around the complex. And then we also have the circulation out to the original road that runs north and south along the old airport area. So then in terms of the indoor program, and Darren will talk about the pool components, but I'll focus on the indoor program. Early on, we were planning lots of different, again, based on the public feedback, the spaces that were most interesting to the public and what they thought should be in this facility. And to be honest, at this point, we pretty much we're providing all of those in the concept now. We still have the large gym space, which is that existing 2-story volume, which has as you can see, 8 volleyball and 12 pickleball or badminton courts. We have an option to do either 2 or 4 party rooms. I'll share that with you in just a moment. We've always wanted to have, the public always wanted some level of food, cafe or concession nutrition bar with its associated storage. We have multi-purpose rooms, very similar to the image for all kinds of different activity classes. We have the fitness center as well, which is, primarily weights and free weights and cardiovascular equipment. We were able to save some of the existing offices on the second floor. So we have some park and rec offices in the building now. We have community lounge and game space. And then because the existing building is so large, we have a significant amount primarily on the second floor of unfinished space. So there is future space to grow into over time as both need and funding become available. So when we look at the entry level, the first floor level, the original footprint of the Axiom building is of course to the east. And we're using the existing front door at the very top. I don't know if I can use my arrow on here. Yeah, we're going to use the existing entry here, which right now, you come in, it's a modest lobby. We're going to tear out all of the existing walls to the west and create a nice, larger kind of lobby lounge space that visually connects you to the rest of the facility, but also all the way down to the pool. We've got our control point shown in red, so that's where everyone will check in as members or community members. We also have our existing elevator and the main stair up. So it's pretty efficient in terms of coming in. You look, when you come in, you'll look to your left, and the area, to that area, we're cleaning that up, and that'll be the new fitness center. Now that actually is behind the control point, so you can see into it, but you'll have to go past the control point and come back into the building this way and kind of double back this way to get into the fitness center. But while you're coming down that corridor, you can also get to the two multi-purpose rooms. We are renovating the existing bathrooms directly behind the main stair. We're also adding additional restrooms to the facility because, again, this was originally primarily a marketing center and warehouse, so it didn't have a requirement for a lot of toilets. And then at the end of this nice lobby space, we have our cafe and some storage behind it to back up. So it's kind of central to all the activity space. You can see into the pool from the lobby, but you can't get into it. That's not how you enter the pool, at least as a user. You'll come down this corridor that's been developed to run all the way north and south. And as you come down that corridor, you go past a couple of party rooms. These are important because these are good income generators for the recreation department. So they'll be full every Saturday and Sunday hosting, and maybe even Fridays, hosting birthday parties, going out onto the pool deck. We've got some pool storage, and then we have the green area are two new locker rooms. And these locker rooms are designed now to serve both the indoor aquatic center and then the outdoor water park. So they function, they're year-round locker rooms, but they function for both indoor and outdoor components. And then at the very bottom of the corridor, we come down, we have some additional family changing areas and some additional toilets down at this end. And then the rest of the building is primarily capturing some storage for the main gym space and storage for the pool space. Again, the large gym space are those volleyball courts and all those badminton courts. So you've captured a tremendous amount of space there. And then if you are coming to go swimming, you can come in the dry side. That's what we call it in our business. You can come in through a series of bathrooms, the locker rooms are there, and then the showers, and then you can come out the back once you've changed into your suit, and you can use that long corridor depending on whether you're going outdoors, you're going south, or if you're going indoors, you follow that corridor back up, and then you can get into the indoor pool. And again, Darren will talk more about the actual pool features, but the rest of this level includes then a second way to get into the outdoor pool is coming from the parking lot through a gated area. We have essentially kind of the headquarters for the outdoor pool. It's a ticket space, so you can, again, check IDs and or for day visitors from maybe outside of Conway, they can go ahead and pay to come to the water park. So you come in through that secured entry, so you can come in either way. And then we've got a big concession area here with a number of outdoor seating area, tables for seating. We've got some additional just auxiliary bathrooms, primarily, again, just for outdoor ease of, you don't have to go back into the building. You can just use the restrooms here. Darren will talk a little bit more about what goes in this support building, but that's all the pumps and filters and equipment necessary to run both the indoor and outdoor pool. And then again, Darren will talk more about the pool itself, but it is a completely fenced and controlled space. So once you come in through the front door, you are essentially in that space having paid or show your membership, and you can come into the facility and spend your day there outdoors. We do have one alternate that we're still considering. On the first level, we had some unfinished space, and so we have an alternate. This will all work out. It'll be folded into the project if the funding becomes available. We're under budget. We're able to capture those spaces as well. We'll add 2 more party rooms. We'll also add a game room and then a community meeting room space. Just an additional space where you can, separate from what these multi-purpose rooms are, that's literally just for meetings in a space. So it also has the function of it being a meeting space. So if you're, whatever tournament you're running out of the gym space, you have that opportunity to do that there. If we go upstairs, upstairs is what's interesting. We've got a lot of this space, which was originally cubicles, again, for the marketing part of the business. Those are now left as unfinished spaces, so a future area to grow into and to renovate at a later date. But again, if you're coming up the main stair or the elevator, we are renovating the bathrooms on that level and adding some additional bathrooms up there, as again, because of the number of people that can be on that level. We're doing a little bit of renovation to an existing break room. These are some of those found office spaces, so these will be the future spaces in the office suite for Parks and Rec. And then you'll also use this corridor if you're coming in to see a competition event in the pool. The pool is 1 level below you, and there's a whole tiered section on that second level. It seats 250 spectators for watching any competition, or of course, even if there isn't competition, but let's say your child is having swim lessons or even just the team is working out, there's a place up there for, of course, parents and family members to hang out and watch while that activity is going on. So that's essentially the building components. I've left kind of both plans in case we want to come back and have any questions specifically, but these are just so they relate to one another. But with that said, we want to move on to the indoor pool components, and Darren will update you on that. Sure.
One quick question before we move to the pool.
Sure.
If you go back a slide, level 1.
Want to go all the way back to the bigger one, or use the one on the left? Either one.
The large area where there's pickleball and volleyball, you may have kind of talked about this, but if we're having some sort of larger event or tournament, how do teams and people access that area? Just come in the main area and walk down the main hall and come in?
We've talked about 2 options. One, of course, they can come in through the main and get a stamp on their wrist or have something happen at the front so they know that they're here. Assuming that if it's some type of tournament, whether you're a parent coming along, you're paying a fee to come to the tournament. So that's kind of handled. They can do that there. We've also talked about capturing. It just happens there was kind of a back entry on the facility. So there could also be a second entry for really large tournaments where you could also have individuals come in through here. Now, then in that case, you'd have to have a person stationed there to go ahead and check people coming in and out at that point as well.
I assume during even just regular play, but people in that area, they have access to those 2 green changing room restrooms to the side to go
yes.
to the restroom or change or what they need to do.
Yeah, they're available to them. And in fact, the way they're designed is they're when you first come into them, they're basically restrooms. And you go farther, and then it's the showers and the dressing areas. So you even have, if you were having a special event that, let's say, wasn't sports related, you were going to have a big social or dinner or something where you don't need the other parts of the room. I mean, they essentially operate as just public restrooms for a larger crowd.
Thank you.
Okay, Darren.
Good evening, Council. Darren Bavard with Councilman Hunsaker. We are the aquatic consultant supporting the design team. And so our scope of work is all the water in the project. So pleasure to see you all again. I know I had the opportunity to present to most of you at the onset of this project, and just really excited to see all the progress that has brought us to this point. So got some slides here to describe in a little more detail a program summary for the aquatics spaces, specifically the pools and the features and elements and program opportunities within that aquatic scope. So beginning with the indoor aquatics portion of the project, we have two separate bodies of water within the natatorium space. The first is the competition pool, which is set up right now as an 8-lane, 25-yard competition pool, so a short course pool. The total water surface area there, as you can see, is about 4,660 square feet of water surface. That includes your 8 lanes, that includes your stair entry alcove. That's going to be your primary access. So you have a pool lift as your primary ADA access, and then obviously you have the stair to enter the pool as your secondary means of ADA access. Those points of access are oriented more toward the shallow end of the pool. So this has a variable depth profile in this body of water. It goes from 4 feet of depth at the shallow end to 12 feet of depth at the deep water end. That 12 feet of depth accommodates the 2 1-meter springboard diving apparatus, as well as our competition starting platforms for swimming competition and training. We do have a fully integrated electronic timing system and scoreboard package in the project at this time to be utilized for swim competition and training. And then, as Eric described, the natatorium is set up with 250 spectator seats on that secondary level. And it's very nice to have that separation of the spectator areas from all of the activity that's going to be taking place on the pool deck when you have those competition events taking place for swim meets and the like. Now, obviously, this is designed as primarily a competition pool, but there are many other programs and activities that can take place in that body of water. One of the advantages of having the 2 separate bodies of water in the year-round portion of the indoor aquatics is that we can maintain 2 separate water temperatures. So you'll have a little bit cooler water to accommodate those competition swimming users and the training activities that will take place there. You have the secondary pool, which I'll describe in just a moment, that will be maintained at a little bit warmer water temperature for those different user groups. But as far as the competition pool and alternative programming uses, again, you have a section of that pool at 4 feet of water depth. That's going to be usable for aqua aerobics, for water basketball, for water volleyball, for just open swim recreation at times. We've talked about the opportunity to put floatable or inflatable apparatus in there to do some of the obstacle course type of events and activities. So despite it being designed primarily as a competition pool and set up to function very highly for that type of use, there are a number of other activities and programs that will take place and user groups that will be in that body of water. The second pool in the natatorium space is our leisure instructional pool. You can see there just south of the competition pool. That's just over 1,100 square feet of water surface area. And the pool is set up to give us, again, some variation in water depth. So you can enter the pool from the east side at a sloped entry or a shallow step entry. And that comes down into really what is a wading pool area or a shallow splash and play zone. So you're at 12 inches of water depth in that one half of the pool. So that's valuable for activities for very young children. That's sort of an introduction to water for learn to swim. And then you have this transition that's sort of, you can see those curved lines sort of in the center of the pool. That represents a grand stair feature that steps down gradually from that 12 inches of water depth down to a more traditional intermediate water depth of 3.5 feet. So sort of 2 zones within that pool that transitions from very shallow play area into that intermediate water depth. And that's going to be really valuable for your learn to swim programming, your lesson programming. Those terrace stairs are great as staging area, as well as the 2 underwater bench seats that we have set up. So off the south side of that pool, that circular alcove that you see, that's a social space and with an underwater bench seat. You can sit in there, you can relax. We might have some some hydrotherapy jets that we include in that space. And also, again, valuable for staging for children that are taking swim lessons. And then you have a bench along that curved wall at the northwest corner of the pool as well. So sort of 2 zones within that pool, with that transition being the grand stair feature. And it's going to set up really well for use by young children, families with young children, lessons, learn to swim, etc. Any questions on the 2 indoor pools in the description there? Yes, sir. Let me see if I can point to those here.
Like
So
they're up there.
right here, they're kind of hard to see in this print, but here's one, here's the second. Those are your 2 1-meter springboards. That's on the deep end wall of the pool. obviously, with each of the lanes, you have a competition starting platform as well. And actually, I should have probably skipped to this slide, where we just put together some representative images. So you can see example of an 8-lane short course pool, upper left. Lower left is athletes starting from those competition starting platforms. And then lower right is just sort of a shot looking at those springboards, the 1 meter springboards, and then a representative image of a typical indoor leisure pool there. That one's a little bit larger than what we have in our plan, but it's a good example in a facility that you all may be familiar with in Pine Bluff.
So those would just be in place during competitions?
Those starting platforms are removable. So there's a deck anchor. Those can be removed when they're not in use. Most facilities choose to leave them in place the majority of the time, and there's a safety cover that goes on each one when they're not in use or they're not closed. So if the pool is open for recreational activity, you could have the safety covers on those blocks, or you can remove them and put them in storage.
Infinity pool?
It is a continuous perimeter overflow gutter. Yes, sir. The gutter will be designed, I can't point with this, so you can kind of see in the foreground of this image what we have set up right now, and we've reviewed this as we've gone through some of the discussion about design process and detailing of the pools. It's set up as a deck level gutter. So the water surface elevation in the pool is equivalent to the deck elevation. Continuous rim flow around the entire perimeter of the pool. Very efficient and effective at capturing that turbulence off the surface of the pool, quelling the wave action, making for fast water.
The reason that I asked the lower left hand picture.
Yeah, so that pool, that image is from Southern Methodist University. That is a long course pool that has a movable bulkhead. And the reason that those blocks are elevated on that, what we call a parapet, is so when the bulkhead's at that end of the pool, that elevation matches up. So a little bit different design approach because that pool has a movable bulkhead to convert from short course to long course. Go back here for just a moment. So Eric had mentioned the pool mechanical building, which is over on the west side of this L-shaped appendage that comes off of the new natatorium. This is our dedicated pool mechanical space. This serves both the indoor and the outdoor pools and houses all of the back of house circulation treatment systems that serve to maintain the pool water, sanitize and keep it healthy. So your pumps, your filtration, all of your chemical treatment systems and automation, all of your secondary disinfection. We have 2 dedicated spaces for the pool chemical storage. We want to isolate those chemicals from one another and isolate those from the main space because some of those chemicals are corrosive, and so we want to contain that corrosive environment within a dedicated storage space that has dedicated ventilation, is designed to be non-corrodable. All the components in there to be non-corrodable. So that's what those 2 room labels represent: is your primary sanitizer media and your pH buffer media are stored in those dedicated spaces. I think it ends up being a little over 3,000 square feet of pool mechanical space with the combination of indoor and outdoor, and especially the lazy river propulsion systems. There are a lot of pumps in that zone. We have all that equipment laid out. It's not represented in this plan, but we are to that level of design where the equipment's been sized, selected, laid out in that space, and we're coordinating with the various design disciplines to make all that happen.
I got a question, man.
Sir.
What's the size of the small pool down there?
The small pool, in terms of water surface area, is 1,134 square feet. Then you can kind of see the depiction of the deck area around the pools. You've got ample deck space, especially for the competition pool in terms of athlete circulation, judges and officials moving along the sides of the pools. And it's, again, very nice that we are able to separate that spectator seating on the higher level and keep the spectators off the pool deck.
Are you talking about the little waiter that I'm being? That's the one I'm checking.
It's all right.
It's up there.
The smaller pool, the
12-inch one. That's the one.
yeah. So
It's
yeah, let me use the pointer. The arrow up
Say it so
there.
loud like that.
So this leisure/instructional pool, 1,100 square feet water surface. That's this body of water right here.
Okay.
And I should have probably done this when I was describing previously, but this is a shallow side of that pool. So you've got a sloped entry, and then you've got a shallow step entry along this edge. And you can envision, you know, young children, toddlers sitting on these steps, splashing, playing in this zone that's 12 inches deep. And we'll likely have some opportunity for some low water bubbler features and things like that in that area as well. This render doesn't depict that. Then, of course, you've got the, as I described, the grand stair transitions down to 3.5 feet of water depth. This is your open zone that can be utilized for lesson programming, learn to swim, smaller aqua aerobics classes, fitness, wellness, therapy. Remember, this is a warm water pool, or warmer. And then you've got 2 underwater bench seat areas. So you've got this social alcove, and you've got the bench seat along that corner of the pool as well. Moving on to the outdoor aquatic scope. And we can come back if there are more questions on indoor as well. Again, with the outdoor, we have 2 separate pools, 2 separate bodies of water. You've got your multi-purpose leisure pool. It's about 6,200 square feet of water surface area. That's this pool here, this kind of free-form leisure pool. And you've got some kind of dedicated zones in this pool. So that's what I've tried to describe with the bullet points here. As you enter this pool from the north, this is your zero depth entry or beach style entry. So you're walking into the pool on a very gradual slope, starting at 0 water depth and transitioning slowly down to 12 inches of water depth in this play zone. And then you can see the depth contours, which represent 6 inches of depth change, sloping gradually down to 3.5 feet of depth for this open water area. So back here in this shallow zone, as you can imagine, this beach style entry, there's going to be various types of interactive water features, spray features. That's what these little graphics represent. Bubblers, themed spray features, etc. We do have a theme that's being considered for this package for the spray features as well as the elevated aquatic play structure that has some aviation type elements, kind of an homage to the airport that was on this site previously. And we have some renders of how that might look. We're working with the equipment manufacturers to determine the details of that. But this is your multi-level elevated aquatic play structure. So there's a lot of activity taking place on this play structure. This is where, again, this is kind of the lively, the interactive space for young children to be in the water and splash and play. So you enter up onto the play structure. There's a couple different platform elevations. At each elevation of the platform, there are various interactive spray features, valves that can be manipulated to adjust spray, water cannons, things like that. You have 2 different styles of water slide coming off this play structure. So you've got this kind of dual flume toddler slide here, and then you've got this curved enclosed flume that wraps around and goes back under the higher platform on the play structure. So a lot of activity here, a lot taking place, all happening in that shallow water play zone of the pool. Positioned over here on the east side of the pool, this is our what we call a tanning ledge or underwater wet deck. So this is a shallow zone or shallow ledge in the pool that has lounge chairs. I've got a picture on the next slide that'll kind of depict what that looks like. We've got another in-water bench seating alcove here. So another social space to sit in the pool, relax, have a conversation, watch all of the activity that's taking place out here. As you transition down to this open swim zone, this is your 3.5 feet of depth for just open swim activity. Splash, play, etc. We had the opportunity to consider, some of the activities that would take place in the shallow portion of the indoor lap pool can also take place seasonally out here when the outdoor pools are open. And then we transition over here to a little bit deeper water for this modular climbing wall feature. I've got a picture of that in just a moment, and what we call a crossing activity with floatable features in the pool. So I'll show you a picture. Actually, let me just jump over to show what that looks like. So for these images, this is an image representing that shallow zone, that zero depth entry, beach style entry, an example of an aquatic play structure with all those different activities that take place there, as we described. This is your crossing activity that happens down at the south end of that pool. So these themed floatable elements are tethered in the pool. You've got the cargo netting across, and it becomes a challenging activity for children to traverse across the pool. These elements can all be removed They're stored in the off season, and they can be taken out of the pool if that space was needed for some other use or activity. But that's the primary function of that floatable or crossing activity feature. Then you've got a modular climbing wall, which gives you a bouldering climbing experience at the pool edge, where you can climb up the wall. Obviously, when you release, plunge back into the water. These panels are customizable and reconfigurable to create different climbing experiences. You may change that seasonally or something like that, just to kind of keep it as a new experience.
And how deep is it right there? 3.5?
So no, for this climbing feature, we've gone to 6 feet of depth. Yeah, so that's, I'll go back and I'll show you how those depth contours work in just a moment. And then this is your underwater ledge or sunning lounge area. So a shallow ledge in the pool with some lounge chairs to sit, socialize, relax, and watch that activity. Let me go back to the plan here. And I didn't do a good job of describing. So all of this area is 3.5 feet. And then this contour represents the break where we slope down to 6 feet in that climbing wall area. Okay, then we have our lazy river, which in total surface area is about 6,800 square feet of water surface. What's more important when you look at it statistically as a lazy river, though, is that we're at 530 lineal feet of river channel. So it's a very nice sized lazy river in terms of ride experience of sitting in an inflatable tube floating around that river, 530 feet of channel length. We have propulsion nozzles positioned in specific locations in the pool wall to generate that current. So as I mentioned, those pumps live in the pool mechanical building. The piping comes out, hits the nozzles at those different wall locations, and those pumps are all operated on variable speed drives. So we'll have the ability to actually adjust that current depending on who's using the pool and how it's being used. Most of the time, it's a lazy river where the users are sitting in an inflatable, floating around, meandering around the river. But at other times, we may want to have a water walking class in the lazy river, where you're walking with or against the current, as assistive and resistive training, that kind of thing. So we can adjust the current to be different velocity for those different activities. So you've got your primary river channel. You've got multiple points of ingress, egress that you can kind of see around the pool here. And then you've got this circular alcove in the center island of the lazy river. This is what we call a vortex pool. It's a circular area that we use a similar style of propulsion system to create a swirling water effect in that zone of the pool. It's another recreational feature. Kids love to get in there and just kind of swirl around with the current, but it also has some alternative uses, such as the water walking, assistive resistive training, etc. So lots of moving water taking place in this pool. Kind of exciting from the standpoint of how you'll be interacting with that moving water when utilizing that pool. And then attached to the lazy river here, we have our water slide plunge pool. And you can see this render of the water slide concept. In the project right now, we have 2 separate body flumes plunging into the plunge pool. So one open flume water slide, one fully enclosed flume water slide, and a tower height of 30 feet. And the tower is set up, and we have planned for all of the infrastructure to be included for future expansion or future addition of 3 additional slide flumes. Now those slide flumes, 2 of them would go this direction and terminate on the deck in what we call a deck runout or shutdown lane, and one would be an alternative type of slide, could be like a speed slide that does the same over on this side of the pool, terminating in a shutdown lane instead of plunging into the water. That gives us really ultimate flexibility in terms of considering those additional flumes as an alternate bid item or very easy future expansion enhancement to add to the facility on down the road, because all of the infrastructure, the below grade piping, et cetera, is already in place as a part of the original construction. So if we go back to our images here, the 2 on the top are kind of going back to the multipurpose leisure pool, showing an open water zone similar in kind of style and shape to what we have planned for your facility. And then the underwater bench seating alcove, you can see there how that's being used, people sitting on the pool edge or sitting on the bench in the water. The images at the bottom of this slide are more representative of the lazy river. So you can see the river channel with people sitting in the inflatable tubes. We always recommend the clear tubes because it helps a lot with visibility. As you can imagine, when the river is very crowded, we want to make sure that lifeguards have the best visibility opportunity possible. So those clear tubes are what you're seeing in that image there. And there's some themed elements within that image of the lazy river. As we've talked about, we're considering theming for water features within the project. And then the water slides that you see in those two images, the background of the image on the left and also in the image on the right, are similar in scale and style to what is in the project now. So one open flume, which this orange flume represents, where it's an open flume, and then a fully enclosed flume. So two different ride experiences in terms of how those, how those riders experience the water slides. We'll go back to this plan and just ask if there are any questions in this part of the scope. All right. Thank you for allowing me to describe that, and we'll jump back to, I think Eric's going to give a little more. Yep.
These images go back to probably, I think they were from the meeting, the December meeting we had, I think when we were showing images of the facility. This is primarily focusing on the existing entry to the Axiom building. Of course, it's a metal skin building, but one of the things we've talked about from the very beginning is essentially using a style of stone that can be put on the front of the metal part of the building, essentially to give it a stone base, which we think is very nice. And at this time, this was the rendering. Now, as we've worked as a team in terms of looking at cost options, we keep the stone on the building. What we've done is reduce the amount of covering or porch that essentially was connecting this entry down to the aquatic center entry, excuse me. But we think it's still, architecturally, it's still a very sharp building. It's kind of that blend of nature with modern. We don't have the large signage that's freestanding, but we've done the signage in the windows that are on the second level where you sit during the competition use of the facility. And so we think this has kind of come together nicely. And again, also we've been able to save some money in the project. And again, this is if we come down, slide a little bit to the west. This is focusing on the entry. And again, you'll see in the next image where we've removed most of that covering. We still have a covering over the main entry coming into the outdoor water park portion. You can see individuals kind of standing at the windows. They're the gate system that you would go into the facility from there. And so we still wanted to have, we have a screen wall element that kind of looks like it's natural wood. And we've got this nice kind of modern enclosure for the extension of the seating area of the natatorium. We still have plenty of windows and natural light getting into the lower level and the second level of the existing building. And as you can see the back in the background, the colorful slide components of the facility. And so these were all done in the interest of managing the cost of the project, but still making it pretty exciting and new in terms of individuals, whether you're visiting the first time or after you've come for a couple of years. We think it's pretty exciting as a resource to the community. So with that, we're ready for any questions, or we can switch over presentations and Napholtz can talk about schedule and construction.
Thank you.
Switch over?
Wait,
wanna
I
come on up?
have one quick question.
Sure.
So in the drawings, I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of need for a very large air handling system. And that won't be where the pool mechanics are. I saw some small electric rooms in the Axiom building. So where will all of that be? Because I could just imagine the humidity and air
The
conditioning.
mechanical unit for the pool is separate from the existing Axiom building. So they're essentially considered both for code and just because of mechanical systems completely separate from one another, although you can come through in a couple of door locations. And so that system is all new, and that's a part of the, it's above the concession area in that office area. There is an air handler that goes directly into the pool side of the building. we are able to reuse many of the existing units that were on the original building roof. And those will be modified with control systems and things like that. But essentially, we're not adding thousands and thousands of people to the building, so we're able to use those systems.
And Miss Isby, I did leave one group out, you and your committee, which really took the time and effort to get out and find out what the public wanted. So thank you to you and your committee.
Well, you mentioned the driving force.
There you go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for letting us be here. I want to echo a couple of comments that the mayor made at the very beginning of this. And that is to give a shout out to Felicia, to Jamie, to Steve, to Troy, and Derek. I mean, the team has done phenomenal work. And, you know, whenever you look at their job description, I don't think anything of facilitating this process is clearly identified. It falls under other duties as assigned. They've done a great job of shepherding through this entire process, and they've represented the city very well. I also want to say thank you to you. How long have we been talking about bringing a facility like this to the city of Conway?
Yeah, we're sitting here.
Yeah, well, ever since you were a young man, and you think about how long ago that's been. You know? That's exactly right. So the fact that we've been talking about it for that long, and you all have had the perseverance to stay the course and to deliver a facility of this quality to the city of Conway is absolutely as exciting as I've seen. So thank you for that. It's an exciting time for Conway. The folks that are with me that are really the experts that are here are Mark Solberg, who's our EVP of Operations. We've got Mike Armstrong, who's our project executive, and Chris Tyler, who's our senior project manager. They've been working along with the design team and the team that I just mentioned from the city to make all this happen. You all gave us the honor of working for you, and we started going to work for you back in May. And what has been happening since then? You know, here we are now in April of 2023. During that time, we've actually held over 27 different meetings and work sessions with our design partners and city officials to go through and to navigate throughout this entire process. There's been a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of effort put into that with a singular focus of making sure that we deliver the most value that we possibly can to the taxpayers. Okay. In addition to that, one of the processes that goes through that is as the design ebbs and flows, is we looked at over 80 different value analysis items where we look at different building systems, different materials, different scopes options. And we put a price to that we can look at that minimizes the overall cost of the project while preserving the integrity of the program. Okay. Over 80 of those were identified. Over 41 of those were taken and adopted and incorporated into this project that resulted in cost reductions of about $6.4 million. Okay. So that's some of the effort that's been done over the last few months. As you all know, we went through the pandemic, and that's disrupted everything for everybody. And the construction industry obviously was not insulated from that. Since 2021, we've had a little over 40% cost escalation. It's been unprecedented in our industry. Okay. Despite all of that, and with all of the work and the collaboration with the design team and your committees, we were able to maintain all of the amenities that Eric showed you on the PowerPoint just a few minutes ago. And so that's pretty exciting as well. Now, even though we've been able to do that, I do want to provide some cautionary advice, and that is we need to move as quickly as we possibly can, because even though we are starting to see some softening in construction costs, steel and mechanical electrical equipment and materials are starting to have a little bit of an uptick, okay? That accounts for about 40% of the budget of this project. And so the sooner we get to the market with this, the sooner we're able to realize some savings and avoid some of those cost escalations. And last, one of the things that we want to do is cast as wide a net as we possibly can to increase as much participation in this project to hopefully drive that cost down even further. This team has already identified over 600 plus subcontractors and suppliers across a 5-state area that they are going to be soliciting bids from. Okay. Now, all 600 of those are not going to submit a bid, right? Our goal and objective is to receive at least 3 to 5 on each of the trade packages. So again, that we can get favorable pricing that's out there. And we're pretty excited about that. In fact, we just had a recent project similar in size in the central Arkansas area where we averaged over 4 bidders per package. and that project came in under budget. And that's what our goal is for you. And so what they're going to do, very similar to what Eric did, we're going to go through the project timeline, similar to some of the highlights that we've had here, the construction budget history and some of the details on the value analysis, and then how we're going to establish the GMP, and then ultimately the project schedule. So any questions on that before we get the folks up here that really know what they're doing? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Brad.
You bet.
So what I wanted to walk through, it's been a very collaborative process. Like Brad said, we've had 27 meetings to date. We meet every other week. So that started on May 12th past year with the kickoff meeting. And we have the OAC meeting. There's an example of the agenda and the meeting minutes up in the upper right-hand corner. I know you can't read it, but we have about 15 categories or items that we focus on in those meetings. Right now, in the stage we're at, we only cover about 4 or 5 of those. But just to kind of give you some highlights, one of them is we look, first of all, at any owner information. Is there some decisions and information we need from the owner, the design team needs from the owner? Is there vendors, equipment that they're furnishing that we got to make sure? So a good example would be all the street work that's going in up to this project. Where is that street work stopping? Where do we have to get out to? There's also some IT work or some other things that the owner may be doing. So we want to make sure that we're not putting that in our budget when we don't need to, but we want to make sure there's not a gap there too. We look at design progress. So right now, Mark and them were saying they are done with the design development. They're ready to move on to the construction document phase next. So over these next few meetings, we'll be talking about the progress of that. We'll be talking about what issues are they having and what do we need to help out with and be involved in. And some examples in the past have been, this is an existing building. So he said this is a beautiful existing building, but they're a lovely existing building, but there are some challenges too. So fireproofing codes when this building was built are different now. So we've been looking at, hey, how can we economically address those issues, exterior wall issues, inside and outside the building. So that's been some of the discussions. And then we look at, hey, where are we at on budgets? What do we need to focus on? The last thing we've been spending a lot of time on, especially lately, is the VE. And Brad touched a little bit on that. We'll get into a little bit more detail there. But those are some of the things. Another category that we're just starting to get into is permitting. What do we need to do? What authorities, AHJs have to review this, and what do we got to prepare to get ready for that so we don't just stumble and lose some time on it. So that's basically what we've been doing and how we've been doing it over the past year.
I think last time I was here, I had to talk about money, so why not do it again this time? Right? So I want to walk through our construction budget history. Again, remember, this is just the construction budget. Let's start with conceptual budget. Mark mentioned earlier that was like box diagrams. So we had a good idea where the project was. We had a good idea what was going to happen there. But we didn't have a whole lot of information at that time, right? And we knew there was going to be more to it, but it's hard to put a price on what you don't know. So at that point, we were right at $30 million. The schematic design came out, and all of a sudden, we had a lot of detail. We had more information, and this was really the home run shot, right? We want everything. This is everything we could possibly want. And so, oddly enough, our assumably, it came in at a little over $40 million. So, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and try to figure out how do we get this back down. Yeah, we didn't have enough sleep. You're right. So, we met with the design team and we figured out what was important to the city and how can we be good stewards of the public's money. And we came up with, we were able to reduce that value back down to about $35 million. Then we had design development, which Mark mentioned we went through right before Christmas time. And at that point, that's when the land swap happened. We had a little bit bigger site, which included the detention structures in the front to accommodate for the roundabouts. There was a couple other things that we could talk about. They expanded parking too, and our budget was at about $37 million, a little over $37 million. So we really did a deep dive as a team to figure out, again, what's the best value for the city and for this community center right there. And as Brad mentioned right a while ago, we had about $6 million worth of VE that was incorporated into the design. So I'm happy to say we're back at that $30 million range right now for everything that they showed you.
And that's construction budget.
That's construction budget.
Yeah, so let's go to the next slide here. The construction budget, you got to also factor in AE fees, IT costs, exterior, interior, FF&E. So right now, with what they've shown you, where we think our budget's at, we're at a total program budget of $34 million.
That mean we can get in it next week? I mean, I want to get in before I forget how to swim, you know?
So again, that's, we talked a little bit about value analysis or value engineering. Here's just an example. Brad mentioned we had over 80 items. We didn't look at just one spot or just aquatics or what. We looked at exterior skins. We looked at interior renovation spaces. I mean, we really turned over every stone we feel like. And again, it's over $6 million that was incorporated. Yeah.
Hey, I'm afraid to say anything. Don't laugh at me because I don't have a problem.
Again, this is an example of our VE list. And again, this was a collaborative effort with both the city and the design team. We didn't just stop looking at the design. We also, looked at the existing systems. I know the team talked a while ago that we're reusing everything that we can reuse in that building. This is an example of us taking inventory of the HVAC systems and serial numbers and sending it up to the design team so they could do a history search on that and figure out the age and what's the usable life of it. The example on the right is we had PI Roofing go out and just inspect the roof. Is it in good shape, or what do we need to do? What can we do to address it to get some life out of it? And I'm happy to report, I think it still had 10 to 15 years worth of life in it. So these are examples of things that we could do, or that we did, to help reduce or remove scope from the project.
Like Brad talked about before, we've tracked this in a lot of different ways, but generally in 2021 alone, there was about a 30% average increase in construction costs. That continued into 2022, where there's about another 10%. And then so far this year, we're tracking about 3%. The good news is it is flattening out and leveling off. But we don't just look at like industry averages overall. If you want to go to the next slide, we developed a tracking system where we look at all the trades and what's happened in the last 12 months, what's happened in the past 3 months, and then we use a lot of information that we put into this to see and try to forecast what's going to happen in the next 12 months. Another good indication from this graph right here is that those prices are leveling off and coming down a little bit in some. You still get some spikes every once in a while. Brad mentioned right now, metal is probably going to be on the increase within the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely. And so, as Mark and his team is finishing up drawing development, we're going to be developing our bid list. So right now, we actually have 31 trade packages that will go out to the bidding community. Like Brad said, we're going to invite over 600 contractors, suppliers, and our target is a minimum of 3 to 5 bidders per trade. This is going regional. We've already had contact with the contractors in 5 different states. A lot of great interest is going into this project. So what is a trade package? So a trade package is included in our CM manual. What's our CM manual? So our CM manual is our playbook for bidding subcontractors. So we go through each scope of work, and we itemize out exactly what we want that specific contractor to include and what not to include in their proposal. So this does a couple things for us that helps us out. Number one, we know exactly what we're getting. So we're going to have a complete scope of work where there's no gaps, there's no scope of work gaps. More importantly, we're not paying for double, because we're just not sitting the plans out there and just saying, hey, give us a proposal back. We're communicating with the subcontractors on what exactly we want in each bid. And that creates a level of comfortability for the subcontractors, because they know exactly what they're bidding on, and that it'll be a fair apples to apples comparison whenever we do go to bid. So how do we track all this? We have a web application called Billing Connected. So we'll have all the 31 trade packages uploaded in there. We'll have the CM manual. We'll have all the drawings and everything, and it will go out via email to all of our 600 plus invited vendors. And what we can do is we can actually track whenever they click on the documents and actually look at them. And so we can contact them either through phone, email, text, and we can say, hey, We have bid day coming up in about another 10 days. I know you haven't started looking at things. We need you to get on the ball here and start looking at stuff. We need you to get in your pre-bid RFIs. So this is a powerful tool that we can use to address the bidding community to make sure that they are looking at the drawings, at the plans, to make sure that we're not getting any last. And then right now, this is just a very preliminary project schedule. So we are going to get our construction documents sent from Mark and his team mid-June. That is setting up for the earliest for a bid day would be around the 13th of July. We do have some buffer in here for that in case with this being such a complex project going out to a lot of bidders. We want to make sure that we do allow us enough time to kind of go through everything, make sure that everything's caught prior to bid. So if that bid day does need to move a little bit, we do kind of have a little bit of buffer time built into our schedule. So as of right now, we're looking at a construction start in September. Obviously, we're going to want to try to improve upon that, but we're looking at a construction start in September right now with about an 18-month scheduled duration. So that has us kind of wrapping up and the city taking over the facility right around the beginning of May, late April, beginning of May of 2020.
Questions about that? We just want to kind of reemphasize here that construction start date and that bid date. Why does it take 2 months to start after you take a bid? This is a complicated project. It has to go through a lot of review by different agencies. Sometimes those reviews cause changes in the plans that have to get out. Sometimes those bid dates have to move back. So we didn't want to tell you something that was if everything goes perfect, we have a bid date on 7/13. There's not a lot of addendums. There's not review problems. In that September date move up? Yes, certainly. And we'll get to it. We want to start as bad as y'all.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I hope that the public that's watching this now can see why it's taken so long. There are a lot of moving parts to this, but as you can see by the presentations tonight, this is a top-notch facility. Brad, you and your crew, and the Conway crew, and folks from the swimming pool, y'all have done a tremendous job. Thank you all. Any questions at this time before we bring Mr. Winningham up?
I just said, I'm glad we got an end date so people can stop asking me.
Now we can share some.
Start that.
Evening, council.
Good evening.
I have one slide, but it's a good one.
Does it have any pretty pictures with it?
Actually, I have a title slide and then a real slide. So everybody ooh and ah over the title. So as is mentioned before, our project cost estimate is $34,750,000, and that's all in. That's design, construction, furniture, fixtures, equipment. That's start to finish, good to go. Let's swim. The cost item that we know at this point, and that we're actually currently paying on, is the design fees, and that rounded off. These are going to be very round numbers because, as you just saw, this is a 2-year project essentially from today. So $3 million is about the design fees. So I'm going to back that out and say just for construction and to equip the facility, we're needing $31,750,000. Our 2022 bond issue started, we did 2 projects in that bond issue, the community center and the soccer. For the community center, we started out with about $27 million. And after we purchased the Axiom building, and then also after we're backing out the design fees, we're going to have about 21.3 bond funds available for construction and FF&E and everything else needed to finish the project. So you can see we're about $10 million short
and we started looking for other sources. So what we're proposing is about $3 million in our city A&P funds. And this would be partially taken in 2024, partially taken in 2025. So our bond funds is what we're going to spend first. For legal reasons, we need to spend that first. We have IRS regulations that tell us, we have dates we need to have that spent by. We're going to spend that first. So by the time we get to 2024, we're going to be starting to tap into our other funding sources. So, and our guesstimate is about $2 million of A&P funds we'll use in 24 and about $1 million in 2025.
That's the city's A&P.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
It's unspoken for at this time.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Next item, we have one-time funds available from sanitation of about $2 million. For you folks and anybody watching at home or whoever, when you pay your garbage bill, your Conway Court bill, these are not those funds. Those funds stay within the sanitation department and are used for garbage trucks, compactors, the heavy equipment they use in the landfill, and so forth. This money represents what's collected at the booth. So if you haul yard waste out there or construction debris or clean up whatever, and you go dump and you pay at the booth based on the weight, these are those funds that we're going to reach in and use. And they're available, like I said, as just a one-time use, not an ongoing funding for general use. Once we get to that point, we're going to have to start dipping into the general fund. At this point right now, I feel comfortable saying $4.2 million is available in the general fund. And that is factoring in what the general fund has in it right now are big projects going on, which is mainly the fire station on Hartrider. And then we've also committed some general fund monies for the soccer complex. And then I'm holding out about 3 months worth of operating expenses as our minimum balance to hold on to, so to speak. After all that's factored in, we've got about $4.2 million in the general fund that I think could be used for this project. Again, we're talking about a year and a half to 2 years out when we're going to need to be spending that money. So hopefully between now and then, our general fund has grown. That comes to a total of 30.5, and you can see we're still about $1.25 million short. And again, into this project, year and a half, 2 years out, at that point in time, it's more than likely going to be a general fund use to finish up this project for that $1.25 million. And we feel like between now and then, our general fund will have grown and we'll be able to accommodate that. If not that, we can look at these other funds. I mean, if A&P, if there's a large balance in A&P, the council could choose to go that route, leave the general fund alone. But this is what we feel is our best proposal at this point in time to fund the project. And as you can see, we can fully fund the project.
One quick question. The amount that's available in the general fund balance right now, what you're calculating doesn't include the reserve that we've set aside.
Correct.
So there's still $2 million,
correct,
getting close to $2 million in that reserve, our emergency reserve, on top of what you want to set aside with 3 months of operation.
Yes.
Okay.
One thing, this looks great. Thank you for your work on that. One thing we talked about, Mr. Mayor, is once the new soccer park is done, we can sell that land, and any proceeds from that can be put towards this project as well, lowering some of the other funding sources that are needed. So,
Well, speaking of potential land to sell, the old airport park that's across the street.
The old airport
There
park.
used to be I used to play church league softball there, so I know there used to be. Do we still own that?
We do.
So that could be
you're right.
appropriate.
Between Fifth Avenue Park and this new facility, that's not needed.
Yeah.
What we need.
So that could be I mean, I think that's another opportunity
Option.
to.
Yeah.
And have it be invested right across the street.
And our new Conway Trail is going to go through there.
That's right.
Any questions for Mr. Winningham?
I think this is reassuring.
Very much so.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yes, sir.
So council, you have the facts before you. If you give us the go-ahead tonight, we will tell our groups that are here that we are ready to proceed.
You need a motion or what do you need?
We do not. We just need for y'all to say you're okay with the price tag we have with everything that it's included. I know, Mr. Jones, you were wanting to add a high diving board.
6 inches is high enough for me.
I understand. But I am very, very, again, I've said this, I'm very impressed with everything that this group, it's Sheila starting with your group, everything that you guys have put into this. Thank you so much. I think the people of Conway have waited a long time. They're within 2 years of it, so give us 2 more years. But Conway, you're going to be very pleased with this. This is going to bring people from all around to come into our city. So, Counselor, y'all good to proceed, everybody?
Yes.
Can I
Yes, sir.
ask one question? Can we get an option for a retractable roof on the indoor swimming pool? And I know everybody's gonna start asking for what they want now, but I wanna throw that in. I'd like to throw that in just to take a look.
There's a lot of study associated with that option in terms of operation of the building and how it functions from a climate control standpoint within that auditorium space.
Dan, there's some
I need to go. I gotta go back to the hospital. Do I?
Go ahead.
We just need more.
I need to stay in.
How much?
Be careful.
See,
The other thing is it's generally a single source product.
Bad thing.
But the product is manufactured. But if you want to see what one looks like, you can go by.
Swim in there 4 days a week.
You swim there, yeah, so you know it's kind of a, you can just see the amount of natural light that comes into space. Now the difference between that system and what we're proposing, it's not air conditioned. So it can get pretty warm and pretty humid in space. Ours right now includes, of course, dehumidification. 31 degrees. Comfort level. That's a little bit different version than Hendrix. They open it more often because they don't have the and so that's also a different. The only other issue we know from the Hendrix project is the system purchase a really long-term. And like the power window. But it would change the complete design of the roof right now.
But the only other thing that they mentioned, we talked to them, you get service once a year. Funny, but it's not. I mean, we service all 3 pools in Arkansas the same. But, you know, they swing through once a year. Really sophisticated. We'll look at it.
I don't know anything about constructing a football arena, but I can't imagine that Jerry Jones went to Canada to get his roof that slides back and slides over, or Energy Stadium in Houston, or a basketball game was played last night.
Those are even a little more sophisticated. Like some of them, I know Milwaukee's leaks. So they have those are all.
We don't need that.
Exactly. Don't get wet. But no, it's just interesting that there's really just that manufacturer.
We don't.
We also see them typically more in the southeast and southwest where the weather. Air conditioning. East to the south where they had even better. We'll even do sidewalls. But typically they're not skylight. We'll continue.
All back right now.
I got you. I am
It is a
not,
big design change.
I am not wanting to hold anything up, I promise you.
Burn you at the stake in the city square
Oh,
over
I'm
here.
telling you. Don't let me be the one standing in the way there.
So Sheila and Felicia, you have 2 years to learn how to swim to make good on your promises. Y'all remember the promise, don't you?
Yes, I remember.
All right. Council, if nothing else, have a motion to adjourn? Second, we're adjourned. Thank you.